01 Passat 1.8. What I'm getting is the check engine lights coming on, and I'm getting the emissions workshop here. So I'll start it up and it should do it immediately. It's telling me to check coolant because I got it unplugged right now, but it will come up emissions workshop. So what we're going to do here, we're going to run the code, scan it. Now this is the code we're after, the 16795. So in running down that code, the secondary error is detected an improper flow. And what I found is the combi valve vacuum line was leaking. It runs down around right to there. You got to be careful when you take these off, because I had to take the 3 bolts out of the coolant reservoir to get to it, and it is right here. But this plastic little nipples that's on that valve, you got to be careful with them because the hose does have a clamp. But you can see this hose where it was on the combi valve, it's just destroyed. So we're going to take care of that with the silicone hose. It ran up under. It's a little tricky to see because it runs with this wire harness, but it ran up under through here to the combi valve, and then it was tucked away down under and went right into there. So we're going to replace that, clear this code, and this should solve the problem. Now, one contradiction I was getting, I seen some guys were saying it's 3.5 millimeters, some guys were saying it's 4. Now, if you take the open end there and you compare this to the 4 millimeter, it sure looks like a 4 millimeter. But the thing is, this part of the hose is all stretched out and dry rotted. So cut the hose in the middle to a fresh piece. Now when you compare that to a 4 millimeter, look how much smaller the original one is to the 4 millimeter. So we'll compare that to a 3.5, and I would say it's a 3.5, not a 4. So we're going to try the 3.5 and see how that goes on there. This is just silicone. I got some 3.5, I got some 4, I got some 6 mil. But it seems like for this, from that valve over to the combi, is going to be 3.5 mil. And it's about, maybe I'd say about a foot. The way it was in there, they had it all tucked and wrapped back around. Now, while changing that vacuum out and inspecting some other stuff, I noticed right here there's a plastic T that goes, it tees these 2 hoses together into this. The plastic T was just heat rotted and just brittle, cracked. It was already broke. Now what I do on these is, if you go to pretty much any hardware store nowadays, get an Apex crimp T. This one here is 3/8, and I believe that the silicone hose I'm using to replace on this, I believe, is 8 millimeter. But the Apex crimp T is brass. So when you connect this back together with this brass T, you're not going to have to worry about the heat dry rotting it and cracking it in the future. So it's just a little trick. I went ahead and replaced all these vacuum lines on here. It wasn't too bad. The only one that was a little tricky was this one here for the bypass. It actually had rubbed a hole a little. It was rubbing. I don't know if it was leaking, but it had rubbed where it was laying on the alternator. So when I put this one on, I used some of that wire shielding and just wrapped around it where it passed through here. But it's silicone. This is your long one. This hose was about 3.5, 4 feet long, comes all the way back around, and it kind of disappears. You got to look for it, but it goes straight down in and comes up from the bottom to the bypass valve, which is here in the front. How I had to get to it was underneath. Take your front panel off the bottom and look up. It's right up here on this side, pretty much on top of the secondary air pump. You'll see it. So that's it. All the silicone vacuum lines on the 2001 Passat. Like I said, just be careful, because where they plug in under here in these little valves underneath here, they're the plastic. So just take your time and